Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Looking for Trouble from 1934, and this is continuing my quest to review as much of William Wellman's filmography as I possibly can within the year of 2013. This is considered his last pre-code film. I kind of don't understand why it's called that because there's not much pre-code about it. There's like one short scene where Spencer Tracy says something like, I think the line's something like, yeah, he's innocent my, and instead of saying ass, there's a car horn. But that's about as racy as this film gets. Certainly this was in that time period, but there's nothing so pre-code about it. That's not a problem with the movie. I don't dislike the movie because of that. It technically is a pre-code, but it's not like there's anything about it that is pre-code other than chronologically. A troubleshooter for the phone company called Joe, played by Spencer Tracy. Now, a troubleshooter for the phone company was basically someone like, your phone's not working, you need to send somebody out and mess with the wires and get it working. So it's like how there's troubleshooting in computers, basically. Similar idea, similar concept. Joe has been working for a while with his partner Dan until one night when he goes to look at a phone in an illegal gambling operation, but they needed their phone fixed anyway. So he goes, and while Joe is working overtime, he sees that Dan isn't going to see his sick mother. He is actually gambling and kind of being a dick also. And Joe doesn't really like Dan and ends up actually getting Dan fired. And then Joe ends up working with Casey, played by Jack Oakey, and they kind of strike up a friendship. And Joe's girlfriend, who's played by Constance Cummings, her name is Ethel, is kind of stuck between Joe, who she intends to marry, although they're not engaged. I guess they're just like pre-engaged or some crap like that. I mean, they don't say that, but you know what I mean. Ethel is kind of stuck between Joe, who's the hard-working phone company troubleshooter, and Dan, who's kind of the fun, gambling, less on-the-level gentleman. And Joe is trying to win his girlfriend and kind of be a hardworking guy and make his way in the company, but still stay a regular troubleshooter until he finds out Dan is up to no good. It's interesting to watch this film when I've seen a lot of other Wellman films, because Wellman is very interested in the kind of male friendship like he had his friends in World War I. And it's really important to him as a filmmaker and a storyteller. It's always really about two guys' intense friendship. It's always about a male-male friendship. And in this film, it's kind of interesting because Joe, played by Spencer Tracy, and Dan, played by Morgan Conway, are really butting heads, and it's like the end of that friendship, while at the same time it's the beginning of his friendship with Casey, played by Jack Oakey. So it's not the same as like Wings or Public Enemy or Wild Boys of the Road. It's almost like he's playing with his own kind of directorial staple in a way. Joe is the main character. He is like, you know, a working class guy who really like puts pride in his work. He doesn't really want to advance too much. He likes his kind of working class position. He's very much a Wellman protagonist. And Spencer Tracy, I think, works well for the kind of films Wellman makes. So it's kind of a shame they didn't make more films together. I wish they had made more films together because they seem to work really well together. I don't think they made any more films together. I think this is it. But he has that working class ethic about him and about his performance. Joe's a real driven idea to kind of take Dan down. Now, Dan is kind of a shady character and is doing bad stuff and is after his girl, so it's a little understandable. But he does seem very driven to like take him down, like he cares too much. Like this relationship was very important to him, and he knows he's bad. He feels like he really knows him and he wants to take him down, but it's almost in a very odd, like gossipy sort of way. It's like kind of like you talk to somebody and they're like kind of obsessed with someone who they're not friends with anymore, talking about all the stupid things they do and how stupid or evil or bad they are now. And Joe's relationship with Dan is like kind of very clouded in all of that. I think it doesn't help that they're both after the same girl. Part of me doesn't like how Joe goes after Dan so much in this film, but another part of me kind of gets it because he just does. Dan's such a shitty person. He's after his girl. What's he gonna do? It's interesting to see that this is a 20th Century Fox film, and I noticed a lot of the films after this from Hencepoint for a while will be done under the studio of 20th Century Fox. I'm not exactly sure why he ended his relationship with Warner Brothers, especially after they let him make Wild Boys of the Road and Heroes for Sale. This feels like more of an assignment film, but almost like, I guess closer to like an Other Men's Women or something, or a Central Airport, where it's not certainly one of his films that I love the most or anything like that. It's not one of the stunning films in his filmography, but it doesn't feel like he's like really as artistically going for it. He's basically making kind of a studio film in the assembly line way. This kind of reminds me a bit of Love is a Racket, but I think it works a lot better because there's this working man's attitude going on throughout it with these troubleshooters, and I think it's better shot and a better made movie. Structurally, it does have a major problem where the film kind of stops at a certain point. It's like one film ends and then the end like half hour is like a completely different movie. I found that really jarring and I almost didn't like it. Like I felt the movie was honestly just too long. It should have ended way before. There's this whole trial with his girlfriend. He's trying to prove that his girlfriend's innocent. And then there's an earthquake, which apparently was based on, they're in Long Beach at that point, and it's based on a real earthquake that had just happened. The earthquake part just really came out of nowhere, and I had already dealt with this movie changing kind of what it was doing, and it's like movie 2 at that point, and then there's an earthquake. I actually rewatched the earthquake sequences, and I noticed, hey, these earthquake sequences are actually really good, and I prefer them actually to the earthquake sequences he did in Frisco Jenny, because they're really expressive and really cool looking, and it's not as good as what was that film, San Francisco, which I think it was called San Francisco, that Spencer Tracy and Clark Gable were in, but that's like one of the best ever. This one apparently has been used in a lot of documentaries, and supposedly for a while that was the only way you could see this movie, is see it in like movies that would talk about earthquakes and Hollywood action sequences. I think it is actually a really impressive action sequence. It's just when I was actually watching the film and the plot's moving on, it was just like too much, a little too over the top. Oh, and there's an earthquake too now? Like, give me a break. I like probably the first hour of this film quite a bit, but I didn't really like the last half hour. A lot of the reviews I've read of this film, people seem to like it quite a bit. I'm not in love with it, but I don't hate it because there's a lot of stuff I like about it. The working man's attitude, Spencer Tracy, Constance Cummings as Ethel, Joe Oakey as Casey. I mean, pretty much most of the cast. This film was unavailable and very unavailable. It was like, it's never gets shown on TV, like ever, and it's not on DVD, and it's very rare, but it is on YouTube, or it was on YouTube when I shot this video, but I think it's probably still on YouTube, and you should check it out if you're kind of into this period. I think it's a good kind of film about, you could say, I guess, the bromance that Wellman liked to put in his films. And it's an interesting send-up of kind of one of those, showing the end of a friendship, rather than, I think he got a lot of strength from his male friendships. Even though I guess the real two-guy relationship in this film is more Joe and Casey, but it's also like the end of Joe and Dan, and that's an interesting thing to see from Wellman. But I think this is also a film that, to really appreciate what it's doing, I would recommend having seen Wings and Public Enemy and a few Wellmans that kind of use this kind of male-male relationship, or Other Men's Women, or Wild Boys of the Road, or if you have seen all those and then you see Looking for Trouble, I think you'll get it. But if you haven't seen that, I don't think Looking for Trouble is as much for you. But if you like Spencer Tracy, hey, why not? So if you have seen Looking for Trouble and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments, and subscribe if you would like to. And the next film in my William Wellman series will be The Call of the Wild, starring Clark Gable and Loretta Young, and that will be next week. I think this one will actually be on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you then.